most respected psychologists in the UK today. She's politically active both at home and away. An award-winning woman, she has very important things to say. Voted one of the top 20 therapists in this city. She's the person you go to when you're feeling shitty. An author and columnist for Cosmopolitan magazine. Is there anywhere this doctor hasn't been? On TV and radio, in the UK and overseas. Her incredible words of wisdom will most definitely be sure to please. She's worked on Big Brother and she herself is a mother. She believes feeling good about your achievements and your passions will lead you to look fabulous while you wear your favourite fashions. It's Dr Linda Papadopoulos!
I'm really sick today, but I really wanted to come because I think that Be Real Talks, what they're doing here is amazing. For me, body image is not just something that I do in sort of my nerd job as a psychologist and looking at human behavior. It's something that I live every day. I live it as a woman, I live it as a mother, my little girl's 10 years old, I live it as a therapist. And when I was thinking back to speaking to, I was thinking, where did this whole interest start? When did I kind of get into it? Because, you know, at my age, 30, 42, when it's supposed to, when I'm growing up, we didn't have that. We didn't, you know, it was cool to be pretty, but it was just as cool to be smart, and it was just as cool to be sport. In my lifetime alone, there's been such a shift. And I remember thinking back, where did I notice that the way that you look can affect the way you feel? And actually, it started with someone very dear to me, my cousin, who's like my sister, I'm an only child. And when I was a teenager, she developed a skin condition called vitiligo. Now this condition depigments the skin, the melanocytes eventually die. And she's got a dark Mediterranean color. So you can imagine how disfiguring this seemed. And it was fascinating because Alexia went from being this open, vibrant, amazingly intelligent and athletic girl to dropping out of sports, to not doing great at school, and to deciding not to go away to study because she felt less than. And that really stayed with me. It stayed with me that she stopped wearing her hair away from her face. It stayed with me that she looked down and spoke quieter. It stayed with me that she felt that she had to settle. So when I went to university, I studied it. I looked at two things. I looked at how our mental state affects our physical state, and also how our physical state affects us psychologically. And one of the first studies I did that stays with me took a group of vitiligo patients, and I started working using something called CBT. Do you guys know what CBT is? Cognitive behavior therapy. Wonderful idea. The basic premise is first you think, then you feel. So if you can change the way you think about something, the way you perceive it, then it consequently can change the way you feel. So I thought, okay, I'm going to apply this therapy to people with vitiligo. And the great thing about research is that you start learning even before the results are out. So I had people coming to me to take part in this study. And I'll never forget that one of the first women that came to me was a stunning dancer, and she was devastated. She spent most of the session crying and telling me how awful her vitiligo was, and I couldn't see it. I genuinely couldn't see this anywhere. And in the end, I had to ask her, I had to say, I can't see it, I'm so sorry, I know it's a big thing for you. She had a lesion on her leg, and for her, that little lesion was definitive of the dancing, was definitive of who she was. So one of the first things I learned is there's no correlation between how we look and how we think we look. Absolutely not. That's at the core of body image. It's up here. The other thing that I learned is all the mythology around body image as well. I had people from different cultures who felt that their way that they looked was you know, something to do with bad karma, or something to do with that they deserved to be different, or they deserved less. In fact, I had other people who come to me who were there because their mothers were upset about the way they looked, or their partners, and they were actually fine. So right from the start, it was very clear and very evident that what people were dealing with when they were dealing with vitiligo wasn't these white lesions, but it was the meaning that they ascribed to these white lesions. Anyway, to cut a long story short, over the next 3 months, we did intensive CBT, and by the end of the study, people had improved significantly. They were able to wear bathing suits and go out without makeup, and reported higher self-esteem and body image and quality of life. And very interestingly, because vitiligo was an autoimmune disorder, the psychoneuroimmunology of the condition meant that because they felt better, the lesions actually got smaller. And I was like, oh my God, and we had this verified. But they weren't that excited that the lesions got smaller. And this was really interesting. You know why they weren't excited? They didn't care anymore. The lesions didn't matter as much, because for the first time in their lives, they were bigger than this condition. For the first time in their lives, they chose not to be defined by this illness, but to define themselves and to define this illness as a part of the bigger picture of who they were. And that really stuck with me, the idea of what we see. And as I went on and studied both in my clinical work and my research work, this is what I looked at. One of the most famous studies that I came across, or most interesting studies I came across doing this was, again, there was a fascinating group of researchers that said, we're going to take a group of people and we're going to put on a fake scar on the face, and we're going to ask these people to go out just around here, Oxford Street, and hand out leaflets. And then we're going to ask them how they feel. So they got these people to come, they had makeup artists, they said, right, you're going to stand on the streets, you're going to hand out these leaflets, we want you to come back and tell us what it was like. So they went out for an hour, they came back, and invariably they were saying, you know what, it was awful, people didn't make eye contact, they wouldn't take the leaflet from my hand, they ignored me, it was awful. I said, fine. You haven't seen yourself in the mirror, so we're going to take the scar off now, okay? You're going to go out again, same corner, want you to come back and tell us what happened. So off they went again, same corner, came back, completely different story. People looked at me in the eye, they spoke to me, I got 3 phone numbers, someone said, that's fascinating. Now we have to tell you that we lied. You thought you had a scar on your face. You never had a scar on your face. You looked exactly the same, time 1, time 2. To this day, I still get goosebumps, because I think, how many times do we look at ourselves in the mirror with these glasses that are smudged with the shoulds and have-tos and the crap that we hear from society, that we should be a certain size, that we're not as pretty as our sister, that the boy that bullied us or the girl that made fun of us, all of this stuff taints what we see. And when it taints what we see, the way we behave, well, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? We get what we expect to get. And all this research, I'm sure you guys have heard that, you know, beautiful people have it easier, you know, that they get more people talk to them at parties, and if they're in court, they get off easier, blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what the reason for that is? Is that many times if you think you're beautiful, you walk out into the world and you expect people to like you. So they do. It's this expectation. It's what you exude. This, to me, is fundamental in understanding why we're seeing so much. I think especially when it comes to girls, one of the things that I found in the last few years, and I've done, as well as body image, I think my interest has kind of moved into sexualization, objectification of women. Exactly like you were saying, the cupcakes and the mini skirts, and the idea that we now relate to ourselves in the third person. When we look in the mirror, we don't look in the mirror, we almost stand outside, and we look at what we are not. We are living in a society that teaches us to look in the mirror, decide what we don't like, and fix it. There are huge industries based on that. And because we are bombarded with more images today than at any other time in our modern history, any other time, our identity is not bound up in our achievements and our beliefs and what we hate and what we love. It's bound up in our Facebook photo. It's bound up in the way that we PR ourselves, in the way that we look. Don't get me wrong. You know, I love my lip gloss and my highlights too, but I love my PhD more. I worked for that, and that's going to stay with me long after everything else changes. You know, my little girl, she's 10. And it's fascinating to me. I don't know how many of you have kids, but whenever I'm out with her, and people love it, they want to say like, oh, she's so pretty and she's so lovely. And all I hear is, oh shit, and I'm like, but she's amazing at judo and math. I make a point of saying she is amazing at math. She's amazing. Because for me, she needs to know the pretty comes and goes and is actually really subjective. And, you know, but you know, her passion, throwing people around at judo, was a whole other kind of and numbers. Now that's what makes Jessie cool. And I think that that's what's missing today. I think we have a dearth of good female role models. We have a dearth of women that we can celebrate. And it's manifesting in really worrying ways. It's 2013, and women still don't make as much as men in any other industry except 3. You want to take a guess what those 3 industries are?
Fashion.
Modeling, porn, and prostitution. There you go. Those are the 3 industries where we outrank men. 2013. And we are doing it again. We objectify women constantly. I mean, I was reading a study the other day that actually looked at how many the way that women are portrayed in music videos. Something like 60% of women in music videos neither sing nor play an instrument. They are there as decorative objects. Neither sing nor play an instrument. They are decorative objects. If you look at the way women are portrayed in advertising, they are dismembered much, much more than men. Significantly more. And what happens when we're dismembered? It teaches us to look at our bodies in that way. Fascinating study that did eye tracking. You really put these goggles on, you kind of see what people are looking at. And when a man looks in the mirror, he kind of looks at the whole thing. He looks at the gestalt, if you will, up and down. He's like, you're pretty good, okay. When a girl looks in the mirror, what do? Love my eyes, hate my nose, like my lips, hate my chin, let them go so on and so forth and so on and so forth. We cut up our bodies, we dismember ourselves the way that we have been taught, the way that we see. This is really worrying. I've been doing this for a long time, and it was interesting when I started out, the way that these messages, the way this poor body image manifested, used to be, you know, lots of things, depression, anxiety, BDD, anorexia, but we kind of see it cluster during the teenage years. We have that angst. I see girls as young as 8 and women in their 40s with these conditions today, and that really worries me. It really worries me that a child that young is absorbing these shoulds and these have-tos, and it's manifesting in this self-destructive way. And it also worries me that a 40-year-old can't eat a donut without berating herself, or can't just, you know, earn the right to have laughter lines because, you know what, we've laughed a lot, or we frowned a lot, or whatever the case may be. That's not okay. So what do we need to do? How do we fix our body image? Well, it's certainly not with plastic surgery. And you know, again, many studies show that while there's an initial sort of lift, it actually falls down, which is why we're seeing a lot of addiction to it. And I think the whole demedicalization of it is really worrying, because what it's being sold as is if you want to fix your self-esteem, if you want to like yourself more, fix yourself from the outside in. I was reading an article the other day about a Victorian self-help book, interestingly enough, and it said within that self-help book about bettering yourself, all the things that it suggested was around doing for others, was around what you can contribute for the world around you. And you kind of look at how, you know, what we're telling young women today, and it's completely different. It's all about fix yourself from the outside in, and that just doesn't work. This is what we need to do. Firstly, we need to not buy into the beauty myth. You know, the idea that if you're beautiful, you'll have everything you want simply isn't true. Happiness and success come in all shapes and sizes, as do sadly misery and failure. There's no one shape and size. Secondly, you know, understanding that we're like flowers, right? Like some of us are lilies and some of us are carnations and some of us are roses, and this monolithic idea of everybody looking the same. You know, there's only one style of beauty needs to change. You know, I read this great quote by Oscar Wilde saying, you know, be yourself. Everyone else is taken. Lovely idea. We need to learn and teach our kids to look in the mirror again. The simple act of looking in the mirror and focusing on what you like, rather than focusing on what you don't, immediately boosts you. Just try it. Next time you look in the mirror before leaving, instead of saying, oh, that pimple, or oh, that line, say, damn, I've got pretty cool eyes, or hey, I'm working the jacket, or whatever the case may be. Focus on something you like. I think it's really important as well for those of you that are mothers out there, and sisters around kids, the best way to inoculate our daughters against poor self-esteem is to have a good self-esteem ourselves. Don't speak about diets in front of them. Don't criticize your bodies around them, because this negative self-talk, you know, I don't like my legs turns into I don't like my body, turns into I don't like myself. And it affects us and it affects those around us. And you know, the idea that thoughts are, you know, are these intangible things is not true. Thoughts turn into beliefs, turn into behaviors, turn into actions, dictate how we live our lives. Be aware of the negative self-talk. The way that I worked all those years ago with my vitiligo patients, look at those cognitive errors. All or nothing thinking. Either I'm a size 10 or I'm morbidly obese and I'll never be loved. Challenge the ideas that, you know, that maximize the negatives and minimize the positives. Because if you're just maximizing what you don't like, you'll never focus on what you do. And I think finally, and most importantly of all, understand that it's up to you to define what beauty is, to see yourself as beautiful. Because once you see it, everyone else will. Thanks, guys.